Hello? Are we on?
You're it. You're live.
We're live. Ian, can you put the chat on for us?
Yeah, I'll put it up.
Okay, I'm going to do this real quick. Well, you're not recording it, are you, Ian?
No, I'm not recording it.
All right, let me know when we start. All right, well, welcome everybody. We are going to do a few AQ6 episodes tonight. And we're going to talk. We have a lot of Halloween stuff that we were wanting to do. So we have a couple of like horror movie tonight, and we're going to talk about the
Cabinet of Curiosities.
Cabinet of Curiosities, which is another horror series. And then we're going to talk about what are the Rings of Power, and how close was the TV show to the actual legendarium, the actual mythology or lore of Lord of the Rings. We're going to get started in a couple minutes. Ian is doing a couple. All right, there we go. I can see the chat now. I guess we'll get started.
Hey, give me a second. Let me just make sure
when you're ready,
chat's
Ian.
working. I think you guys are good.
I don't see any chats in the chat.
There's like 40 people there. They're just chilling.
Okay.
Guys,
a couple
chat to us
people
so that we know you're there.
chatted earlier. Yes.
There we go.
Say
Hi.
something.
Thank you for doing that.
Hello. There's more people on YouTube, I think. Chat? Question mark.
Meppy-licious.
Meppy-licious.
Visto. What's up, man?
Very.
Oh, good. I've seen a lot of people there. Chatty, chat.
Chatty, chat. Did the notification help everybody realize that we're streaming tonight?
Apparently, because
Let us know.
One person already dropped out of the chat. They were like, "What the hell am I watching?"
Well, yeah, it's garbage.
It's like I see Bob, and they're like, "I'm out."
This guy. All right, let me start rolling. Hold on. Stand by. One. They can't handle it, Bob.
Carl Palmer.
Okay, we are rolling. Go
We're
ahead,
rolling.
Parker.
Okay, here we go. Sound check ready. We're going to do a little bit of this, so editing is not so horrific for me. Thank you.
The main chat is everywhere. Wherever you like to be.
Where did we go?
Guys, Twitch.
Yeah, you could chat on any one of the places that we're streaming to right now, and it'll all show up to us.
Through the magic of the internet.
Bob has a rocket launching from his head. Oh, yeah, that's
Here
pretty
it
cool.
is. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay,
all right.
ready?
So wait, which one do you want to start with?
First?
Lord of the Rings first, guys, and we'll.
Let's get it over with.
You kidding me? I've been dying to have this conversation.
Okay, here we go. Hi, this is Steve.
This is Bob.
This is Jay.
We are Alpha Quadrant 6, a science fiction review show. And on this episode, we're going to be talking about the Rings of Power, the lore from Tolkien's writings, as well as the new TV show, and how well is the TV show doing in actually representing the lore. So let's talk first about what we know from all of the writings of Tolkien about the Rings of Power themselves.
Yeah, quick disclaimer. This, should I even bother saying spoilers? Like, yes, this information exists. It's readily available.
This is all massive spoilers.
If you're watching the Rings of Power TV show and that's all you know about Tolkien, this is a spoiler because you're going to hear about the real mythology that Tolkien wrote versus what's in the TV show. We're going to get into those details, but just be ready because you're going to hear a lot of interesting stuff here. So there are rings of power that were created in the world of Tolkien.
20 of them.
And one of the cool things is there's more than 20 of them.
Well, there's 20 of the main ones.
The actual rings of power.
Yeah, the rings of power. There are lesser magical rings that were created when the elves were practicing making rings, basically.
So Bob wanted to know, like, what could those rings do? And the fun thing is basically anything that's in D&D,
you could
those
imagine,
are the rings,
yeah,
right? So you have a +1 ring of protection, you have a ring of regeneration, you have a ring of featherfall, a ring of water walking, like all these minor
strength.
One-shot powers. That's cool, but they're not the rings of power.
Yeah. But it's funny, they're just out there in the world somewhere, unaccounted for, and never really spoken of again in the Tolkien.
How many do you
mythology.
think?
A bunch. I mean, they took them years, right? Decades of practice before they made the
Really?
Right? Isn't it that long?
Yeah, and the really cool thing about those other rings is that they were already out there. People have them. They made so many that they have to be out there.
Yeah. Can you stack them? One on each finger?
Well, in D&D, you can only have a few rings, right? So there's a limit. Like
One on each hand.
One on each hand.
Yeah.
So the first thing that we should get back to when we talk about Tolkien and Tolkien's world is that There are 4 ages in Tolkien's world, and they each of the ages last for thousands of years. And an age ends when something significant has taken place. So we are talking about the second age in Tolkien's world. Now, this was a full age before the movies, The Lord of the Rings.
That was the third age.
That was the third age.
And the movies end at the beginning of the fourth age, when Sauron is killed.
It can get a little complicated.
Whoa, he dies?
Well, not actually. Sauron can't actually be permanently killed. He goes
banished from Middle Earth, basically.
Spirit form probably forever at that point.
All right, but so we're going to be talking about the second age. This is the time period that the TV show, the Amazon Prime Rings of Power, is focusing on. It's focusing on when the 20 big Rings of Power were created. Let's talk first about, just very quickly, let's summarize the lore from Tolkien. Now, a lot of this comes from, interestingly, it's not like Tolkien laid it all out. I mean, he kind of does, but there's lots of references in different parts of The Hobbit, The Lord of the Rings, and the Silmarillion, where people in the world are talking about what happened in the past. What they say may not be necessarily completely accurate, and at different times you can get sort of different impressions about some of the details, but we're going to try to put it together, I think, as best as we can.
It is even more complicated than that, because Tolkien wrote letters to people where he wrote about stuff, and then there's other compendiums. And
a lot of this was backstory that then was published by his son after Tolkien died. It wasn't like it was a coherent story, but Jay, why don't you start? Give us the backstory, like the overview of how were the rings made.
So Sauron disguised himself as Anatar, and Anatar was the Lord of Gifts, and he said to the elves and to man that he was a representative of the Valar, which are basically there's Aru Iluvatar, which is the god in Tolkien's world, and the Valar are basically his pantheon of gods, right? All these different aspects of the one god. And he said, Sauron, disguised as Anatar, said, I've come from the Valar, and I'm here to help you. And what ended up happening very quickly, he first gets imprisoned by the Númenóreans, and he was imprisoned with them for, I think, up decades. And during that time, he ingratiated himself upon the people who were ruling the Númenóreans, and then he ends up becoming a counselor type of person. And then he becomes friends with Celebrimbor.
Celebrimbor, who is basically the last greatest smith of the elves.
Yeah, he's the grandson of the elf who created the Silmarils.
Yeah.
And so crafting is within the family. So what happens is he as Sauron as Anatar starts teaching him ring lore. How to make magic rings. And this information is coming from, I guess from their perspective, they probably thought that or knew that he was a Maiar because he came from the Valar, right?
Yeah.
So he's teaching them literally how to make magic items. And they make all these lesser rings. They're practicing. So you got Celebrimbor and his other craftsmen that are there with him, the smithies that are there are learning the craft. And then at some point, they decide that they're going to make collections of these more powerful rings, and these are the rings of power. And then, the breakdown, as everybody knows, 7 rings, then they made 9 rings, and at that point, it ends.
Yeah, although it's not clear if they were really made as 2 sets, because Sauron's plan was to just make a bunch of rings, give them to powerful elves, and then forge the one ring, right, that gives him enough power over anyone wearing the other rings, and essentially have a bloodless coup. Just take over the elves without having to wage a war against them, right? Because he's mind controlling all the powerful elves that are in charge.
Now, like you said, Steve, there's lots of different interpretations and things that people have said, and different things in different stories. Like one thing I read was that he'll know their thoughts.
Yeah.
That's definitely something that he was going to get from the rings. But as you know, the men who wore the rings, he totaled them. He took them over.
Yeah, but that's we're going to get there.
Yeah, they were my favorite. The nine for men.
The Nazgul, they were so cool. I know they're awesome villains.
Do we want to go into a little bit more detail?
Well, let's go to timeline a little bit.
So
so what happens is we have the ring making begins, and quite a bit of time is going by, and they get good enough at their craft So at some point, they start making these collections of rings of power. Now, like Steve was saying, in the movies, they say straight up 9 for the dwarven kings, seven for the dwarven kings, 9 for men. And then there's these other 3 rings of power that are also created.
The elves that were made for the elves.
Let's break it down, Bob. Why don't you tell us about the 7 rings that are supposedly for the dwarves?
No, he's talking about the humans. I'm talking about the dwarves.
That's what I said. Talk about
I'm going
the
to do that.
9
All right.
rings.
So these are my favorite rings. These are my favorite, and you could argue that it's the big success story of the entire 20-ring pantheon. These are the most important ones from Sauron's point of view. He gives them to men, knowing that they would be like. They would work exceedingly well, far better than any other race out there. Now, initially, it's going really good. You got the ring. You're not aging. You're rich. You're
rich?
Famous.
You have a great singing voice.
Some of them turned into sorcerers. I mean, this is like you're rocking these rings. I would consider that because they were doing this for decades and centuries. This is what's happening. So, but then of course, the corruption is always in the background, and eventually, the corruption does take over, and they actually then start becoming invisible and morph into the Nazgul, the ring wraiths. Not good.
Yeah.
They become for even more centuries. They become
thousands of years.
They become the right hand men of Sauron. That's why I'm saying that they were the big success story.
Extension of his. They were an extension of him.
They were absolutely an extension of him, and such that when Sauron got stronger, they got stronger, and it's at one point they were actually going toe to toe with Gandalf the White. I mean, that's some serious power right there. But then of course when Sauron gets weak, they're weak as well. So big success story, lots of fun. These are the best rings, I think.
Yeah, because men were corruptible. Now,
of course we are.
The 7 that were given to the 7 dwarf lords, and they think that corresponds to the 7 dwarven kingdoms. The dwarves were made to be, very firm, stout, and incorruptible. They were specifically made that they could not be corrupted, and they weren't. They were able to resist, the corruption of the rings. So that was a failure. Again, Sauron did not initially intend to give them to the dwarves. They were initially intended for the elves. Mm-hmm. But when the elves figured out what Sauron was doing, they made the rings for themselves. Sauron didn't even know about them. Sauron eventually was able to take control of the 16 rings, give 9 to the men, 7 to the dwarves.
Well, he got them back.
He back.
Reclaimed them.
Yeah, from the elves.
Yeah.
So then, the dwarves, it did tend to magnify their accumulation of wealth,
their greediness,
and their greed, and that ended up serving Sauron's purpose.
Yeah.
So it did lead to their downfall because they accumulated hoards that were so big they attracted dragons.
Yeah, you don't want that.
Small.
4 of the rings were destroyed by dragonfire.
Yeah.
4 of the 7 rings, so there were only 3 left.
Oh wow!
And Sauron was able to reacquire 2 of them. One was just lost for, I say lost. No, the people didn't know where they were, like Gandalf and Elrond. They didn't know where that 7th ring was. Turns out it was in the possession of the dwarf Thrain, who I believe is a descendant of Durin, right? And he had it for a long time, but eventually Sauron captured him, cut the ring off of him. And so Sauron got all 3 of the dwarven rings that were still remaining back, and that's basically they're in Sauron's control during the War of the Rings, the Lord of the Rings movies.
And that dwarven greed made them dig very deep.
That's where the Balrog
gets released.
Yeah,
and by the way, this is so cool. The Balrogs, those are Maiar. They are the same thing that Sauron is, and that Gandalf is, and all the other wizards. They're all Maiar. Yeah, so the Balrogs were created by Melkor. He distorted Maiar and transformed them into Balrogs.
So real quick though, the second tier is Valar, and then under that is the Maiar,
Correct.
and under that is lowly men.
And actually,
the elves because elves are the lowest level of immortals.
Right, and then under that then is like
everybody else,
men, dwarves, right?
Yeah, and really, then the Valar are just a subset of their tier. Those are the ones that came to the mortal realm. The other ones what's the whole thing is the Enui or something. They some of them just stayed in the heavens, right? So they never came down.
What do you mean? You mean the Maiar?
No. The Valar are a subset of their tier. that refers to the ones that came to the
Oh,
mortal
there's
realm.
other-
No, you're mixing it up.
No.
The Valar are like the actual angels, right?
I know
those,
that.
Those are
No,
the
no,
gods.
I'm correct.
Angels.
Yeah, I know that.
Then the Maiar are lesser. They're angels too, but they're lesser.
Yeah.
And then a group of Maiar were sent to Middle Earth. You're talking about that group?
No.
Oh, okay.
I know it's confusing because it's the God created the archangels, but some of the archangels decided to get involved with things. The rest didn't. But anyway, that's tangential to what we're talking about. So then there's the 3 elven rings. So they come
Okay.
last, right after the
Yeah.
other
So
16.
Celebrimbor finds out that he was deceived by Sauron, that he's actually Sauron, right? Because you imagine, like, all these years I've been working with the freaking enemy, you
Yeah.
know? And he figures out his plan, and then what he does is he creates the 3 elven rings of power in secret, keeps them secret from Sauron to defy Sauron and defy Sauron's plan. Now, these are the 3 most powerful rings of power next to the One Ring, all right? The One Ring is the most powerful one, but the elven rings, out of all the other rings, these 3 are the most powerful, and they have the ability to do a few different things. So one thing that they do is they allow the wearer to extend life, right? So like
they live long.
Lothlorien and Rivendell, where Elrond lives, those places were essentially eternal while the ring bearers were staying there, right? Another thing that
But
they
wait,
do,
they were already immortal. Why?
no, the land is
land.
it.
Where's the land gonna go?
No, so as
keeps it healthy and defended
right.
and whatever.
right.
yeah.
So
Nice,
like in
that's
Lothlorien, Galadriel has the ring on, right, and she's building Lothlorien and planting trees and growing things and doing stuff.
Plus,
and then it all remains.
There's
It all
also the
stays.
implication that it kept it safe from Sauron and the orcs and whatever. Although they
Kinda.
kind of, because they give that implication, but there are times when the orcs do invade Lothlorien.
Well,
so
I always looked at it like in small numbers, evil creatures in small numbers would feel very much avoidant of these
they
areas.
wouldn't even know it was there.
Yeah, or maybe they won't even
Yeah.
recognize it. But then, if an army rolls in, the army can come in.
Yeah.
All right.
Or Sauron himself would have to be directing them to get there.
Now, these 3 rings that were specifically made for the elves were given names. So there was, I always think of the band Enya. You know that band?
Yeah.
Enya? So okay,
Ilya, Enya.
Nenya, Narya, and Vilya.
Yeah.
All right, so the 3 rings are Nenya, Narya, and Vilya. And these 3 rings, they had some similar properties to them. So let's talk about the one that Gandalf is wearing. Gandalf is wearing the ring, and it has a ruby, right? A red ruby.
Golden ruby.
And it's supposed to be the ring of fire, right? That's supposed to be the element that it belongs to, because these 3 rings are air, earth, and fire. And if they had wind, they could start a band. No, you don't get it? Earth, wind, and fire?
Yeah.
Yeah, I get it. So they're
All
kind
right,
of like
so
avatars.
So when Gandalf puts his ring on, his ring is a morale booster. His ring makes the people around him, not tire from the constant battle against evil.
Mm-hmm.
And for him, it gives him the ability to stay on his path for thousands of years.
Yeah, to avoid the weariness of long
Right.
life and being on task for so long.
Now, we don't actually know if
Wow.
Gandalf's ring actually enhanced his ability to cast fire magic and all that stuff. I've read positive and negative to that point.
It's not clear.
It's debatable, and I would believe both sides at any given time. It's cool. But in the end, when Sauron put on the One Ring, the 3 rings that the elves were wearing, the 3 ring bearers became aware that what Sauron did, became aware of Sauron's deception, and they took the rings off.
Oh boy.
And they hid the rings from Sauron
Nice.
because they knew he wanted them, and they knew what he
Elves
was
rock.
up to. So then, I know I'm jumping around a little bit, but I love this fact, and it was really fun to realize. 'Cause I remember saying, well, what's the point? They couldn't use the rings, and I forgot. They defeat Sauron at the end of the Second Age. Sauron and his army are defeated, and the ring is cut off his hand by Isildur. And now that Sauron is separated from the ring, they immediately put the rings of power on, and boom, full
They got
effect.
that for the next 2,500 years.
It's also debated if
Nice.
Elrond's ring let him heal people, because he, remember,
I
Frodo
think
had to be brought to
it
him
gave
for
him
healing,
healing magic and also some foresight into the future.
or he had those things inherently.
Or he had them inherently.
Yeah, who knows?
They don't make it clear.
Now, Galadriel's ring, which was made out of mithril and it had a diamond.
Yeah, well, it's not clear, but because of the name adamant, to the adamant ring, they think it's probably a diamond.
Okay,
Yeah.
a clear stone,
Clear
very
stone,
valuable. Oh, and those
probably
stones
then.
came from
From
Valinor.
Valinor, yeah.
Yeah, very cool.
Which is what?
That's
Where?
the Undying Land.
That's
That's,
the
where the
Undying Land.
immortals go.
Okay.
That's where they go at the end of the movie.
Yeah.
That's where they go back to Valinor. Or the elves go back. They bring Frodo and Bilbo
Even
and Gandalf.
even Bilbo went there.
Well,
And
they let
sorry,
any ring bearer go. Even Sam eventually goes.
Sam?
When Sam's wife dies and he lives for a very long time, Sam gets on a boat and goes over to the Undying Lands and
You must have loved to
joins
see
them.
Frodo.
I know. Could you imagine that
Mr.
reunion?
Frodo.
Oh, Mr. Frodo. So the three rings enable the elves to sustain their presence in Middle Earth and have beautiful lands and do some important things. Galadriel meets Frodo for the first time in Lothlorien.
Mm-hmm.
Remember, so Frodo goes to her at night, and the two of them have a discussion, and a few things happen that are very cool there. Frodo sees her ring, which no one is supposed to be able to see because
They're invisible. The rings themselves, the elven rings themselves, are invisible, right? Unless you're a ring bearer yourself.
Yeah.
Oh, I was thinking.
Isn't that cool,
If
Bob?
you put it down, you never find it again. Like,
No,
what the
they
hell?
can see it. They can see it. I think it probably turns invisible when you put it on.
Yeah.
That makes the most sense. Or else you would never know what they look like.
Right.
So now a couple of things happen, and this is where, I don't know if there's answers to this, but at one point, Galadriel pours water into this basin and then gives Frodo and Sam a vision of potential
It was just
futures.
Frodo.
No, Sam saw back home in the Shire. At one point, Sam came.
In the movie, it was just Frodo at the pool, though.
In the book, I think Sam
Yeah,
comes back
maybe.
and sees. Yeah, because he sees like Bagshot on fire and all
Yeah.
that stuff. So I was wondering if her ring gave her that power, or if that was one of Galadriel's powers
yeah, we
that she
don't
was able
know.
to do. I mean, that's seeing the future, which is pretty
Yeah.
cool.
All right, so that's the timeline. They make the rings, the 16 rings, the 9 and the 7, with Sauron, not knowing that he did it. Sauron sneaks back to Mount Doom, makes the one ring to control them all. He had to put all of his power into it, or a lot of it, and it had to be more powerful than all the other rings so that he could dominate them. The elves figure out what's going on. They take their rings off, and then the Lord of the Rings happens. So now let's go to the Rings of Power.
The TV show.
The TV show.
Right. Wah,
The TV
wah,
show. Which, hey, I'm different. I loved it.
I'm digging it.
I
Totally
loved it.
digging
Wait,
it.
somebody asked, why does Gandalf have an elven ring?
Because it went first to Gil-galad, who was an elf, and he died, and then was given to Gandalf to help him on his quest,
Fight
basically,
Sauron,
to help
yeah.
to fight Sauron.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, so in the series, the Amazon Prime TV series, they are rewriting the sequence of events, and specifically with the rings, what we really don't learn until essentially the last episode. Again, spoilers. We know that Hillebrand, who's not even in the books, is actually Sauron in disguise. He helps Celebrimbor break through his mental block and figure out how to use the mithril, how to make an alloy with the mithril, how to get those alloys to stick together so that he could make the rings. But then Galadriel sniffs out Sauron, who has to leave. So then essentially Elrond, Celebrimbor, and Galadriel make the three rings
For balance.
of the elves, the three elven rings, using 3 gems from Valinor, using the gold and silver from Galadriel's dagger that she got from her brother, alloyed with the mithril that Elrond got from Doran. Right?
Correct.
Got all that?
Correct.
Okay.
You got it. Damn.
They make those 3 rings. Sauron is not there, so he's not up. He knows that he led them to this point, but he didn't see them make those 3 rings. I think he thought.
Well, he didn't even know.
he thought there was only
show. Now,
Yeah.
now compare that to, I don't want to say reality because none of this is reality, but in the real mythology,
The
in the real
Tolkien lore.
Tolkien mythology, this is all complete bullshit.
Yeah.
And it was all, for some reason, we can't figure it out. The 3 of us have been talking about, we know that, right, Bob, you told me today that they had certain things that they were allowed
Yeah,
to access.
Amazon paid $250 million, $250 million for the rights for this. They won it, but that was for The Hobbit. It was for The Lord of the Rings and the appendices.
Right.
And in
But
Return
not the Silmarillion.
Right. But I think what the thinking was that, well, this is the best we're going to do, and the appendices had some of the stuff that was, about the wider universe and the history of Middle Earth. So I think they took that and they figured, all right, we're going to rip off of that, but we can't use the Silmarillion.
Yeah, so basically what that means is anything that was mentioned in any of the things they have the rights to
fair game.
is fair game. But if something was only mentioned in the Silmarillion, they can't touch it.
Can I talk
that's
now?
my take.
Yeah.
Because I have a big thing I want to say.
Go ahead.
First, somebody asked, my God, was this TV show gorgeous?
Gorgeous, yeah.
I loved seeing Middle Earth rendered like this, and it was it shows you just how big Middle Earth is and how the grandeur of Middle Earth. Okay,
and
without a doubt.
Galadriel blows me away every scene she's in. She's
fantastic.
An amazing
the actor is amazing.
actor.
Yeah.
Love her to death.
All right, but here's what I don't get. This is where behind closed doors, people were talking and they made decisions. I don't get this decision. Hey, I'm Amazon and I want to buy the rights to some of your property. I want to get some IP from you because we want to make a TV show. All right, well, here's what we're willing to give you. Here's what you can have access to. Okay, well, we're going to make a TV show about the Second Age and what happens in the creation of the Rings of Power. But apparently we don't have permission to tell that story, so we're going to make up our own.
Mm-hmm.
That's why this TV show is a massive disappointment to me. As much as I enjoyed it, I liked watching it, I liked a lot of the things about it, but you're not actually telling the story that Tolkien created.
So now I'm going to explain to you why you're wrong.
I'm not done explaining to you
okay.
why you're wrong ahead of the time before you tell me why I'm wrong. So my point is,
You're a purist.
I like the idea of them taking it and at least doing their best to try to follow the mythology. Steve,
Yeah.
I agree with you when you say, and I really do agree with you, it's a different medium. It's not a book.
Yeah.
This is a TV show. Things that happen over hundreds of years can't happen that way. It's very hard to tell a story that happens over hundreds of years, so they have to condense it. I agree with all those things. But they rewrote this. They changed it significantly.
I mean, all right. Yes, it's a different medium. It's a TV series. It's not a book. You have to figure out how are we going to let the audience know what's going on. You can't you can have way more characters in a book than you can have in a TV show. You have to condense the number of characters down. You have to oftentimes condense the timeline down.
Mm-hmm.
And also, film, TV shows, whatever, needs to have a certain structure. Like you need acts in a way that you don't in a book. If you remember at the end of the Fellowship of the Rings, the first of the Lord of the Rings movies, they kill the orc, the head orc.
Yeah.
He survived till late, much later on. But they needed something big to happen at the end of the first movie. They needed a transition. That movie, in and of itself, needs to have a beginning, a middle, and an end. They tried to do the same thing with The Hobbit. It didn't work at all. And that's I don't want to get into that. But it's the same challenge. So we need each episode needs to have a beginning, middle, and the end. The season needs to have a beginning, a middle, and the end. You can't have a show about the Rings of Power without the Rings of Power making an appearance at the end of the first season.
But you can't. I'm not disagreeing.
We couldn't have decades of crap happening before the rings get made.
We lack the real information. Right?
I know.
We don't know
We're
exactly
inferring.
why.
Yeah.
We're inferring everything, right? So
the lawyers may have had something to say about
why
how
can't-
closely the story could match the thing they didn't have the rights to.
But even if I were the people that were holding on to the Tolkien IP, and they said, "Yeah, we want to tell the story of the," then you'd figure well, let me sell you the rights to at least tell that story. It doesn't make any sense.
But the thing is, here's the thing, and this is where you and I know fundamentally differ, and because I'm just a realist when it comes to this. I know this is what almost always happens, and so you might as well just go with it.
Right.
Is that oftentimes when you make a movie or a TV series based upon a written work, that they don't tell the story in the book. It's not a film of the book. It's a story based upon the book.
Inspired by.
It's different. It's going to be different in significant ways, and you just have to see, does it work in and of itself? And I think that so far it does. And the thing is, we don't know where they're going with it. We don't know what the next 4 seasons are going to bring. I'm assuming all the rings are going to get made, and we're going to pretty much end up in the same place, and it's fine.
Wait a second.
Let them tell the story the way they need to
second.
tell it to make it work for the medium.
But you're assuming that they couldn't. Your assumption,
Yeah.
unspoken, is that they couldn't tell the correct story because because of problems,
That's my assumption.
and I don't agree with that.
And
because
you would need to. We would need to interview the writers and ask them about their choices.
and also we need to know what's coming in the next 4
Yes,
seasons, which we
right.
don't. And I'll give you that, of course.
right.
But
I agree with that.
but
We're
we know
inferring.
they don't have access to the Silmarillion.
Yeah.
we
But
know
Bob,
that.
isn't it odd though? Like we're gonna tell this story that happens in the second
Yeah,
age, but we don't have rights to tell that
right.
story.
So yeah, we're
No,
gonna
but
yeah,
we're
gonna riff.
Before this happened, the world experienced the last season of Game of Thrones.
Right.
Follow me on this. And everybody that is into fantasy had a similar experience for the most part. Most people were very disappointed with that last season. And people felt, a lot of people, there was a ton of pushback, massive disappointment, right?
Yeah. What's your point?
My point is, this was predictable. You take an IP like this and you don't follow it as closely as you can. If you don't do that,
That's a bad analogy because in the Game of Thrones they were past what Martin had written, and the Lord of the Rings was a really difficult series of books to begin with. There were major problems. Martin had lost his way by the time, and he's struggling to figure out how to bring it all around. So they didn't do a good job of bringing it all around at the end themselves.
I don't
But
disagree with all that.
I think there's no
But-
analogy here. The only thing is, listen, they're moving the story around, right? They're changing the order in which the rings get
well,
made.
they're coming up with characters. They're doing
They're
things.
they're absolutely they're doing that.
Right.
And so, but if they're just sort of taking some different pathways, they have to end up at the end of the day. It's got to be compatible with the Lord of the Rings.
Not according to your premise. According to
No,
your
I'm saying
premise.
it's got to be internally consistent. At least, so that.
Oh
that-
yeah, it has to be consistent to itself.
Yeah,
sure.
But I mean, I am assuming that it's canon to the movies. Is that a reasonable assumption? Is it that this property, the Amazon Prime,
Right.
and
who knows?
and the movies, the Hobbit movies, and
That's a
Lord of the
huge
Rings,
assumption. Who
You're
knows?
right,
Different
you're right.
production houses and everything.
they may. I mean, I'm assuming they're not going to kill off Galadriel. You know what I mean?
And unlike Amazon, Peter Jackson actually, got the rights to the story he
He did,
wanted
but
to tell.
Jackson made the same choices. Tom Bombadil is nowhere to be seen.
Well,
in the
that,
Lord
but
of the Rings.
that makes sense. Cutting
He
out.
cut out Arwen's brother, like nowhere to be seen.
Yeah, I know. There was a lot of things that they had to do, but his
timeline-
brushstrokes were so much more accurate.
Right.
than
The
this
only thing
story.
that matters to me is, did they do it well? They're telling a slightly different story to make it work for
Right.
the medium. If it works well, I'm not worried about. Oh, they changed this. This is not exactly the way I imagine it in the book or whatever. If you take that approach, you will always be disappointed.
Well, half the
You
people
will
agree with you.
Always be disappointed.
Half the people agree with you.
Yeah.
Half the people agree with me.
Yeah.
But
Look,
let me
and
throw
again,
in
I
something.
enjoyed it. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed it as well. I understand, Steve. I totally understand that you could take a property, intellectual property, and then you have it in front of you and you make your decisions.
Yeah.
You make your decisions for this visual
As a
medium. That's
screenwriter,
fine.
yeah.
But I also I also agree with Jay that it's very unfortunate that at the beginning of the process, when you're starting with the property that you can mold, you have access. You do not have
That's
access
true.
to
It's a weird
chunk
thing.
of it, and that sucks. And it's unfortunate. And it's like it's
Yeah, because
it's annoying.
it
That's
limits
what,
the creative process.
yes, exactly.
I agree with that. There was a limitation here.
That's what
and
I
they
think
had
Jay
to
is
decide,
saying.
Yeah, do we go forward with the limitation and make it work, or do we cancel
Yeah.
the whole
And
thing?
you know what else sucks about
And
it?
I'm happy they went forward. I'm going to enjoy it for what it
Right,
is,
I'll
and I
watch
don't
it
care.
and I'll enjoy it. But you know what I don't like either. Now there's this is like Star Trek.
Yeah.
Now there's two
Kelvin
timelines.
timeline, the
There's
Kelvin
two timelines.
Yeah.
Now
It does
when
get crazy.
Now
It
when
gets
I look
crazy.
up information online,
You gotta-
I
Yeah.
have to check myself and go, wait a minute, is this TV show lore or is this Tolkien lore? Because they're different things.
Well, that's the true of any franchise
Yeah.
that gets really big, like the Star Wars universe franchise, and that's why there has to be some central canon where it's like, this is the thing that is actually, this is all internally consistent with itself, so that it clears up some of the confusion that happens when a franchise becomes too sprawling and there's too many reboots and whatever. Okay, so we got 4 more seasons of this show to talk about.
Yeah, we're
when
here,
it
we're
happens,
here.
and it's a lot of fun. I think it's gorgeous. The production is great. The acting is wonderful. I'm enjoying the story for what it is. I'm just not going to worry about how consistent it is with the books. for now, as long as it comes around and it all works internally, and it's a good story, and I enjoy the story as told, I'm happy with it. And I know I consistently say that if you're not, you're just going to be disappointed, because this is the films and the TV shows are never true to the books because they can't be.
Well,
They never are. They never are.
That's true, but when they rip out 3 chapters of the book and say you can't even go near
Yeah,
here,
yeah,
that
I
sucks.
got you.
All right.
But just enjoy it for what it is.
All right, if
And
you
it's
enjoy-
good. It's good stuff.
if you enjoy hearing us argue about things that don't even exist, if you're okay, we love it. Oh my God, did we have fun? I have been researching what we just said right here for 3 years.
Yeah.
I spent 3 years filling it. Steve, and then Bob, check this out. And about 2 hours ago, Steve's like, "I've absorbed all of this. I know everything that you've learned. It took me an hour." That's the doctor version versus like the Piker version over here. But anyway, my God, do I love the Tolkien universe. If you enjoyed this show or you want to hear more things like this show, then please go to alphaquadrant6.com. We also have a Patreon, and this show is also turned into a podcast. You can go to alphaquadrant6.com for all those things. Subscribe. Why don't you click the subscribe button right now? We'd love to have you join us. And guys, we'll see you next week. Okay.
Alrighty
One
then.
down,
Good job, guys.
2 to go.
We threw down a ton of info.
Yeah, it's a lot
Yeah.
of shit.
Yeah, it's a download.
We could have easily gone for another half an hour.
Okay, we're gonna do Cabinet of Curiosity next.
Cabinet of Curiosities.
Yeah.
Okay, ready,
Hey
Ian?
Jay, I'm gonna record the audio in a couple different places, so you're gonna start hearing yourself. You can take your headphones out if you want.
Okay, I'll take it out as soon as you tell me go.
Do you hear yourself though?
Right
Just
now,
to-
I don't think maybe a little bit, but it's not
Yeah, okay.
intolerable.
Oh, well, okay. So if you want it, it's cool.
Okay.
All right. Stand by. Let me
Cabinet of
Record again?
Curiosities.
recording.
What's the director's name again?
Recording.
Guillermo del Toro.
Guillermo del Toro.
Guillermo del Toro.
Do it.
I love how watermelons have become a permanent
Don't.
texture in chats
I know.
fresh to you.
It's wonderful.
What the
Look,
hell
I
is
have
that?
an
Is that an
overlay.
octopus?
Organic.
I know, it's so awesome.
It's the watermelon too.
Yeah.
There we go. Oop. All right, we're rolling.
We could just
You
do this,
can
Jay.
Clacker.
Second file? No, this you want to be able to
Yeah,
get
I
a
hear
visual.
you. I
Okay,
know.
Anyway, I got a question for somebody.
go ahead.
Reckoner 47, is that name based on the science fiction superhero book series Reckoners? Probably not. Good series.
The Reckoners.
Reckoners.
You reckon? I think there's a delay too, Bob. So
Yeah,
we'll
I
probably won't get the answer.
Okay.
All right,
Well,
Ian.
Twitch is the fastest.
Ian, you're rolling a new file.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, here we go, boys.
Yep.
Ready? Double boxing. Ready?
So, ready?
Perfect.
Okay, you guys ready?
Yeah.
Hi, this is Steve.
This is Bob.
This is Jay.
We are Alpha Quadrant 6, a science fiction review show. And on this episode, we are going to review the Netflix series Cabinet of Curiosity by Guillermo del Toro. Now, this is an anthology series. I love anthology series. I love it when you have a show where each episode is just a story. It's just one good story, and then you move on to the next one, right? It's not trying to. I mean, I love series as well, serial TV shows, but that sometimes there's advantages and disadvantages to both. The advantages of the anthology is that you tell these nice, crisp, self-contained
Characters
stories.
can die. Anything
Can happen. Yeah. So this is the season 1. I don't know if there's going to be more seasons, but season 1 is 8 one-hour episodes. They're basically all horror genre shows. And
1 hour. One hour
hour.
episodes, not a half hour, not 20 minutes or 40, an hour.
we're not going to give you a
Solid.
rundown of every episode. But we're just going to give an overview of the whole series
Yeah.
and talk about some of the highlights, the best parts, the worst parts. Who wants to start with their overview?
I'll start with
All right.
the, so we essentially agree.
I think
We've already
so.
pre-gamed it and talked about it. I mean, there's a lot of episodes here. There are my general comments about the series is that it was a little stretched out, meaning a lot of these episodes could have told their stories much quicker. They could have, in a 60-minute show, they could have probably whacked it back to 40 minutes, maybe 45 minutes.
I think every single episode was too long. I think every episode could have been 40 minutes or something like that.
Some of them, not.
I mean, there's a way to tell a story in an efficient, coherent, tight way, and these episodes were not it. I mean, maybe the only one that I wasn't feeling like, oh my God, would you just move on with the plot already, was the rat one.
Yeah,
because that was this long sequence of events. But,
Okay,
but the other one's like, all right, we talked about The Viewing, very good episode. It's like 40 minutes that could have been handled in 5 minutes, and then you got 20 minutes of actual activity and interesting stuff. There was literally like 30 minutes of stuff happening that didn't have to happen. Essentially, the basic plot is a rich guy invites these specialists in to view some object that he has. You don't know what it is. And you would think that the big long lead up would be building the suspense and the intrigue and interest as to what the thing was. But it didn't. It didn't even accomplish what I think should have been the primary thing there.
And then at the end of that episode, you're like, what happened? What
exactly?
I'm okay with an open-ended, like the monsters loose in the city. That's fine. We kind of know it's.
But I was joking with Steve. So this episode had some cool elements to it.
Yeah,
no doubt.
The 70s vibe was awesome.
The 70s vibe was always good, but it didn't need it. The story didn't need the 70s vibe.
But it enhanced it, I think.
So there was a conversation where all the people who were invited to the rich guy's house they're sitting in like this circular seating arrangement, and
they're doing drugs.
They had a 20-minute conversation on screen that could 100% be cut out.
Yeah. Well, it could have happened in 5 minutes.
Right, but the thing that we were joking about is the monster literally, Bob, it walked so slowly, it was like. Like you could outrun this monster if you didn't have feet. You could outrun this thing.
The monster was psychic based.
Yes, of course.
It doesn't need to be moved fast. You're just in its presence, and it melts you because of its psychic energy.
Yeah, it was scary.
It was
you were
Cthulhu.
in front of the
I
damn
thought it was
thing.
Cthulhu.
It was very Cthulhu-esque.
Well, let's start with Del Toro in the beginning. He's the host. He comes out and he intros every
like
bit,
Twilight Zone. Yeah,
like Twilight Zone, and I like the call out to the director of each episode. That's great. But I gotta say, Del Toro, for me,
he's not a compelling host.
He detracted from it. Just kind of everything about his presence kind of pulled me out, detracted. I kept thinking of Rod Serling, and he's not Rod Serling,
no Rod Serling
from that point of view. But Del Toro, I mean, the guy's got the resume. The guy's awesome. I love him. But
I hear you.
Kind of frustrating.
Yeah, but that's a minor thing. It's the preamble to the story.
Yeah, but every episode, I get frustrated.
Sets the tone.
Yeah, but I look at that as a missed opportunity. I think Rod Serling is a perfect example. Rod Serling added so much to those Twilight Zone episodes, so much. That was certainly not the case here. He also, though, didn't interrupt and narrate the stories. He just introed them, and then the story was the story on itself. So it was
good
different.
move on that.
So
that
I think of the 8 episodes, I liked 7 of them. I thought there was one really big clunker in the middle that I didn't like. The one with the girl who's trying to be like her friends, who wants to be popular. I just thought that was a swing and a miss. The rest are all.
Well, the actress did a great job.
She did a great job, and she's a great voiceover.
She's
like done 100 million cartoons. So she's great. But the rest of the episodes were enjoyable. Again, if they were a little bit shorter, I would have enjoyed them more. Another one where I thought that it was not as bad was the witch one. That one was cool. That was a great
with
witch.
Rupert Grint from Harry Potter.
Grint,
yeah.
I would dare say that really was one of the coolest witches, if not the coolest witch I've ever seen.
Yeah, totally.
Excellent witch.
It was creepy, evil.
Yeah.
It was you viscerally didn't want to be around her. You know what I mean?
They bring the special effects. The production value is fantastic.
Yes, the money was there, which is I love seeing on horror TV.
Now, I think my favorite episode, however, was the least horror-y episode of the 8, and that was the last one, Murmurations. It was more of a psychological, haunted house kind of horror story. Again, way too long. It's like they basically did the same scene 5 times. They could have done it once, maybe twice, and we would have we could have whacked out 20 minutes of that episode super easy. But I liked the characters. I like the story. I like how it all came around at the end. How the connection between the characters and the ghosts. I thought it was powerful. It wasn't necessarily a really scary horror episode, but it was a great, just a dramatic episode. I actually really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I mean, it was beautiful. The actors were
You
great.
recognize the guy, right?
Of course, yeah.
Walking Dead. Yeah.
But I saw that as number 1 on some lists. This was the best episode, so I went in there like, yeah. I'm like, oh
It
my
was the best
God!
episode.
No, it wasn't. It was not.
What was your favorite, Bob?
My favorite, my number 1. Let me go with number 2. Number 2 was Graveyard Rats.
That
one,
the scariest for me.
I loved it, but for a special reason. Every October, I've got a slate of like my audiobooks that I listen to, my short stories every October, and Graveyard Rats I listen to every October. It's a short story. It's like 20 minutes long.
Is it that story?
It's that story. I listen to it. It's a beautiful story. So the entire episode, I'm like, please do it justice. Please do it justice. And they made changes. They made serious changes. And I was thinking about it, and like, they needed to do that for a visual medium. They needed to do it. The story as it was that I've listened to would not have worked in
Books
a
are
visual
in your
medium.
head, yeah.
And the decisions they made were great. The actor was fantastic from Stargate. I forget his name, but very enjoyable. I really enjoyed it. Cool. But the number 1, and it should be your number 1 too, Steve, is the Autopsy.
Is very good.
F. Murray Abraham. I thought he was dead. I'm so happy that he
Awesome.
was alive. Love him to death.
Why do you think he was dead?
Because I hadn't seen him in years.
You haven't been watching Mythic Quest?
No.
Oh
So
my God! Watch Mythic Quest.
Whatever.
That one did not have a pacing problem.
No.
I didn't. Yep, that one didn't have a pacing problem that I remember like the other ones. It was
The Graveyard Rats
it was
wasn't bad either. The Witch one wasn't bad either. The
pacing wise.
pacing one. It was not. It was again. They all could have been shortened up, but that wasn't horrible.
Right.
The rest were like really bad.
But this
pacing
one, the
problems.
Autopsy, had the best ending out of any.
It was the ending just blew
It
me.
was the only
it just-
one that didn't have a bad ending.
Yeah.
In a
just-
way, it was not bad
It
ending.
I like
blew me
that.
away, and the gore was off the hook. When I want to see either
And not gratuitous. It was like part of the story.
right.
It moved the story
Right.
along. Yeah, it wasn't gratuitous, which is important.
Exactly.
Man,
It-
when Bob, when you say the gore was off the hook, that is a big deal because you are so hard to impress when it comes to gore.
Yeah, I mean, it was not only intense gore where like Liz had to turn away.
It was well crafted.
but also it was in context, and it was creative use of that gore.
Yeah.
I never saw a scene like that before. And then the ending that comes out though is pure magic. My jaw dropped.
loved it. Yeah, it was
I
good.
loved
I
it.
was
Loved it.
surprised.
And go to that one first. Maybe not first, because then you'll be disappointed
Go
with
to
the
that
other
one
ones.
last.
Can we go back to Rats real quick?
All right. Yes.
Okay,
When
so
that guy decides that he is going to crawl
Oh, I know,
through
forget
the
it.
coffin into the tunnel, I'm like, don't do that. What are you doing? Why would anyone do that?
he was so desperate. So this was one thing I thought of.
He was desperate.
He was
His
so
whole-
desperate.
it's a turning
because
point
he
in
was
his life.
He was wickedly in
They were
debt.
gonna
He had-
kill him
He had
if
bad
they-
people.
Right.
But then there's always the option of, I'll move to San Francisco.
Yeah.
You could just move. I would never, under any circumstance,
circumstances,
crawl into a hole that's
you
in a
can't-
coffin that's 6 feet down on the ground. Never.
that you can't turn around.
Nothing
in, you know what
good
I mean?
comes out of that. You never
Well,
hear someone go, "Hey,
could
I
back
crawled
into
into a
another
hole in a coffin 6 feet down, and I found gold." No, you don't. It's never going to
And
be
Rats
okay.
ate my face off. Yeah.
So he
Yeah.
goes in the hole. Now here's what my experience. It was done very well because I was very uncomfortable. Very, you know how when you
I
really
bet you
feel
were.
it,
I bet you
was
were.
super like, oh my god. I was like, I thought I was going to choke to death while he's crawling through that hole. So they did a great job of shooting that. That's hard work. That actor was on his hands and knees for days.
Even
to shoot that.
even the director gave him kudos specifically for that.
Yeah.
So when that character rather finds the evil temple after falling, he
Yeah.
falls down the hole and he's way below ground level now, and he
Yeah.
finds this evil temple.
Yeah, it's like
That's
50.
when I sat straight up in my seat and was like, all right, I'm ready. I'm ready for it now. What's going to happen next? Like, I was so intrigued
Yeah.
by where that could have gone. It didn't go there. They had this awesome, cool thing right in their hand, and the writer literally went, whatever, evil schmeevil. I'm not going to do anything cool with this evil fucking temple that's, 300 feet below ground. How'd it get there? Who's there? Why is there?
They
What's
could
going on?
have won up that. Yeah.
It could have been so much cooler. And here's where I go back to Steve's thing. you're in a different medium, right, guys? You could change the story if you want to. You're
Yeah.
like, change the story.
Yeah.
They already did. That was not nowhere near the original story.
Write something cool about the temple. You can't introduce. Here's the thing.
Yeah, well, there was something cool. An animated corpse.
No, I'm talking about an order of magnitude more cool. Like
that would have impacted the ending. Had to be the ending.
I get you.
You don't
I know.
want to
I
change
get you.
that
But
ending.
that's the problem now. You have an ending. Like you now you're in a.
That ending was scarier though.
It was, but they could have just cut out the temple completely.
No.
Shortened up.
See, this is funny, Jay, because from my point of view, knowing that story intimately, inside and out, for me, that was like a nice bonus. Oh, cool! Look at this temple. That's fantastic. And then the zombie corpse dude was
But I argue,
important.
don't dangle possibilities in front of an audience and not like how like in TV show or movies where they set you up, they set up
I
expectations
get it.
and then they knock down the expectations and they do it right. This is storytelling 101, and him entering this evil underground ancient temple is a massive setup, and it went nowhere.
It was anticlimactic.
It was
for it.
anticlimactic, and it really upset me because I'm like that because to me that was the coolest thing.
I hear you, but to me that wasn't the point of the story. And
Yeah.
right, so for me it was.
I get you.
The point of the story was the claustrophobia. All right, and that's why that's why the ending was as scary as it was. All right, so overall, I give it a solid B. I would think.
I'm looking forward to season.
I'll watch
two.
season 2.
I'll
I
watch
enjoyed almost all of the episodes. I would like to see the writing either tighten it up, or you need a little bit more story to tell.
Yes.
They were telling a 30-minute story in 60 minutes. That's really what the problem was for most of these episodes.
Yep.
And maybe because like you said, they started with a short story that really was a 30-minute story, but they're like every episode has to be an hour, and so
Yeah, they padded it
so
out.
padded out doesn't work.
And that really makes sense, Steve. That explains a lot.
Yeah.
Like if they were saying, all right, directors, these shows have to be about an hour. Then you're like, oh, okay, so that now we're going to have this long,
Yeah.
unneeded conversation in the middle of the
Yeah.
episode.
Yeah,
Like,
right.
like, I'll tell you what, don't have it be less than 30 minutes.
I mean,
Yeah.
if you're stuck for time, watch the Autopsy, the Graveyard Rats, Pickman's Model, and the Witch one. Watch those,
Yeah.
and I
But
think you'll be good.
If you like really good drama that happens to be horror, then Murmurations was a great episode.
All right, guys, if you enjoyed this episode, you can go to alphaquadrant6.com. That's our website where you could find the links to our Facebook page, our YouTube page, and this show is a podcast. If you're interested, you want to listen to this while you're driving, please do join us, like this show, and we'll see you next week.
Can Ian get rid of the spam in the comments?
He's probably getting rid of it, and they keep coming back.
Yeah, I'm manually doing it.
But wait a second here. So, Ian, 69mega.com. I mean, can they get me laid or what? Does this
Wait,
work?
Let me write that down. Wait
I
a
do
second.
have an AI for it, but it doesn't work.
Look, if an AI can get me laid, I don't care how I get laid.
Mm,
Right? No?
I think it's
Does your
definitely
wife care?
broken.
Well, yeah, she cares, but I'm just saying, this looks intriguing. I mean, the kissy marks on there too. I mean, it means something. All right.
Yep, definitely not spam.
So, please, nobody, don't go to that website. All right.
Ever.
So let's do the last episode. Just to remind both of you guys, we are doing the horror movies.
If anybody wants to
Yes.
DDoS it,
Okay.
please go ahead.
I hope that this comes out good because we're all over the place on
It's
this
all
one.
right. I'll keep it tight.
Toy.
Like I told you. Let me record. There's not a platform with all the
some people,
comments.
not everyone is seeing the spam.
You gotta
that
watch
we're-
everyone.
that we're
Oh,
talking about.
okay. So let me
It's just
explain it.
YouTube.
There's just some spam sex
YouTubers.
sites on, I guess, coming from one of the venues.
This
here.
person
Chulson.
Yeah, you
Who
didn't
wants to
miss
see
much.
it?
Yeah, it's just
So,
some
like,
stupid spam bot
Yeah.
that's basically saying that we could find you a girlfriend.
Yeah.
Actually can't.
Are we ready? What's happening?
Yeah, we're good. All right,
I want
go
to
ahead.
thank everyone who came out
Yeah.
to watch the show tonight. It's way more fun doing the show knowing that we have some people watching.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
And you're helping
Mm-hmm.
too because I am reading the comments and incorporating some of the
Yeah.
comments into the show. All right, my friends, are we ready to go here?
yes.
Yep, go ahead.
Okay, ready? Thank you.
Hey, you ready?
Mhm.
Hi, this is Steve.
This is Bob.
This is Jay.
We are Alpha Quadrant 6, a science fiction review show. And on this episode, we are going to review the horror movie genre. Now, we're going to be only doing movies, not any other medium. And we're going to be talking about different subgenres of horror. We're going to be talking about our favorites, maybe some of our least favorites, trying to hit, there's like, we looked it up, there's like 40, 50 different, subgenres of horror. We're obviously not going to hit all of them.
It gets crazy complicated.
Yeah, it's like they really split it out into multiple subgenres.
Then you get one movie that's in 5 genres. It's.
So we're going to do just some big genre categories of horror, and hitting our favorites along the way. I want to start with, I think, a big subgenre of the horror movie, the monster movie.
Of course.
So let's start with the monster movie. This is a good, this is some low-hanging fruit for us. I have my favorite monster movie. It's also one of my favorite all-time horror movies, and also one of my favorite movies of all time. I think it's in the top 10 of all of those lists.
Me too.
And that is The Thing. John Carpenter's The Thing. I've seen the movie probably a dozen times at this point. Like every couple of years, I'll watch it. It's just a perfect movie.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like I have no notes. Like, talk about pacing. You're talking about the
character development.
They develop characters like that. One scene, one little interaction, and you know so much about that guy's personality.
Yeah.
It's John Carpenter's magnum opus.
It is.
This is my favorite movie that he had ever done.
I got some clarifying info. I was reading up about it because we there was a rumor or whatever online. He had a year for pre-production because I found out what the real deal is.
Yeah.
It wasn't a year. It was 6 weeks.
Okay.
All right. Now the reason why this happened was that there was like the threat of like a workforce boycott in the industry. So they shut all the productions down, and his production they were in pre-production, and they were in normal production. I think they shot most of the movie and everything, but what John Carpenter did then was he rewrote some scenes. He re-edited part of the movie, and he tightened the script up. He beefed up certain characters. Like, he saw all the faults that were in there.
He tweaked the crap out of it.
It's unbelievably rare that someone can sit down for 6 weeks and review all this work that they did and still have ways to fix it.
Yep.
Usually directors watch it and they're like, a few months after the movie comes out, and then all of a sudden they're like, there's all these things that start cropping up that they realize.
It's like, do we have the budget to go back and do some pickup scenes? Or not?
Right.
So he was able to make these very, very important fixes.
And that's important. And also, we got to shout out Rob Bottin.
Oh, man.
His practical effects were beyond the beyond, so intense that he had to go in the hospital after filming to recover from all the effort.
No,
go
back.
It holds up to... This is in the early 80s. This is the early 2020s. It
holds
still
up.
holds
Special
up.
effects still look
How is that
excellent.
even possible that it holds up?
All right,
It
Bob.
was like the peak of the practical effects era before CG was coming into.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah.
It's hard to understand the dollars because we're going back 40 years now, right? But let me tell you some cool information. One, the original budget for special effects, this was in then dollars, not today's dollars, was $250,000, only $250,000. So that was not even close to being enough. Keeping in mind that the movie cost about $17 million to make, so Rob Bottin had $1.5 million for special effects. So it was over a 17th of the budget was spent on special effects at the time for practical effects, and but that's very expensive.
Yeah,
that was a
but
lot
for
of money.
movie,
But for that movie, it wasn't. And
Oh
you know
my
what I
God.
found out? They cut out scenes that were written that they didn't shoot because of money.
Yeah.
There were some really
That's
cool
terrible.
things that they were gonna do.
So let me say,
Great movie.
Since we're talking about the horror genre, there are some things about The Thing that is like quintessential horror movie, right? So the horror genre basically has a few features that are typical. One is that horror stories take place over a very short period of time, right? You can't really sustain some intense, threatening situation for a super long period of time. So often they're like in real time. They're over a few hours or a day or a couple of days, and that's it. Think about a lot of horror movies. They're a very short period of time.
True.
The other one is that they're isolated. The people in the movie are isolated. Here you have an Antarctic base. They're like literally at the ass end of the world. They're super. The isolation is like a key feature. Of
And then a storm comes in, and they're super
they're even
locked
more
down.
isolated. So they can't even communicate. So that was like the perfect ingredients for a horror movie. Then, of course, we have the psychological aspect of it also woven
Oh,
in.
man.
Because, like, you don't, like, again, Who Goes There was the name of the book. You don't know who the bad guy is. You don't know if you're the bad guy. It's like the psychological tension is amazing.
And that's another subgenre. Psychological horror film is another subgenre.
And it's a really scary monster, super scary monster. And the special effects were awesome.
off
it's
the
also
hook.
a gore movie as
it
well.
was
So
it was a perfect storm.
it ticks
Perfect
a
storm.
lot of horror movie boxes. It's it's definitely top 5 of every type of horror movie for me.
Without a doubt.
Now for me, that's definitely in my top 2, 3, whatever.
Yeah.
But for a monster movie, I'm gonna kind of shoehorn in there Cabin in the Woods.
Yeah.
Well, that movie fits in a ton of genres.
a ton of genres.
But let's
ton of
call
them.
it a monster movie for tonight.
It's basically every monster movie
Yeah,
in a
it
way.
is, it
It's
is.
like it sort of takes every monster that
that shows up in horror movies.
that shows up in horror movies.
Yes.
They're all there to some extent.
That movie is so good that I watch it without fail every October. There's not many movies I do that for.
Love it, yeah.
It's so fantastic. And then of course, what's some of what are those two guys? There's Richard Jenkins and Whitley from West Wing.
Yeah, West Wing. Yeah.
Whitley, crap.
Whatever, what's
But those two together are just gold in that
Mm-hmm.
movie because there was definitely some comedy gold. Chris Helmsworth's on there
yeah.
before he was famous, but it's such a meta commentary. I've never seen any horror movie that's such a great meta commentary on horror movies in general. They really nailed it. You will not watch almost any other horror movie again in the same way after watching Cabin in the Woods, especially the classic Cabin in the Woods, where you've got the teenagers
Again,
and
they're isolated.
exactly.
It's over a short period of time.
It's so fantastic. You will be stopping the movie and rewinding and freeze framing it's just such a gorgeous, amazing movie. Watch it if you have not seen
right,
Cabin in the Woods.
I'll take
Joss Whedon.
there's so I love monster movies.
Yeah.
And there's so many, and it's like but I gotta say Jaws because Jaws is exactly as good today as it was when it came out.
It is a wonderful movie.
It's just a great movie.
It doesn't age.
Yeah,
the
it's just a great
even
movie.
even the special effects, like
They're good enough.
They're good enough.
Yeah.
They
They're
still
good enough.
Now this movie
Even
did something
Bruce swimming
that
in the
no
water.
other movie I think could claim. This movie scared most of the people who have access to movies. This movie scared
Yeah.
them. It changed people's perception on swimming.
Right.
It was so
That's huge.
scary. It was so intensely scary and so like, you got to think about that.
It broke new ground.
It broke new
Scary.
ground.
It really
There it
did.
is. Thank
it
you.
also was the first summer blockbuster.
The first one.
It started
The-
the summer blockbuster, so
Yeah.
it definitely.
Mid,
yeah.
is that mid, was, we're
I
talking
can't-
mid 70s.
I can't believe that our parents let me watch that movie
I
in
know.
the theater.
It was
I, 8 years
a
old?
family discussion whether or not we were going to be able to see that movie.
They shouldn't have let me see it.
It was thought to be too scary.
I had no problem with it.
Now, well, the other, we love that stuff. But here's the thing. So, that taps into a primal fear, right? So one of the things that human beings are inherently afraid of are predators, which makes sense, right? 'Cause
Yeah.
we don't want to be hunted. So the idea that something is hunting you, and this thing is literally all jaws and teeth. It's the name of the freaking movie. It was like it magnified and zeroed in on like the scariest predator you could think of. And put our heroes in a situation where they were completely vulnerable.
And
to
you're
it.
in
So
its domain. That's
you
the
are
thing.
in its domain.
Yeah.
You are in its lair.
Yeah.
And you're kind of helpless.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was really a fantastic horror movie. There's some honorable. There's so many honorable mentions.
Alien.
Alien was a
My
great.
God.
Again, isolated, short space, short time frame.
Aliens, I think, is
Aliens.
even better than
Nah,
Alien.
A-
Yes.
It's a totally different kind of movie. though. They're very
Aliens was a
different.
funner movie. Alien was a better horror movie.
Yeah, I think I agree.
Yeah, and that crosses over into the sci-fi horror genre. I don't know if we're going to get into that separately. Let's go to another genre. I
Okay.
want to go to the psychological,
Yeah.
haunted house type of.
All right, The Thing.
Yeah, well,
Just kidding.
so for me,
Psychological.
it's
The Shining.
The Shining.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's The Shining.
It's The Shining,
The
boy.
Shining- now, The Shining, again, it's an introspective genre movie, meaning like Cabin in the Woods, it's not so much meta as it is deliberately making you think about the genre itself, and it's breaking down, it's deconstructing the genre of horror movies. When Stanley Kubrick made the movie, he said, I'm going to make the scariest movie ever made. I don't know that he did that, but what he was talking about was he was going to take the fundamental psychological elements of what makes a horror movie and then go with those, right?
Yeah,
And then and magnify those as much as possible. So he tried to do it from literally a psychological perspective. So again, it's just a fantastic movie. Again, they're in an isolated location. You would say, oh, it takes place over the whole winter, but actually, one of the features of the movie is that you have absolutely no idea how
What
much
day?
time
You have no
has
idea what
passed.
day of the week it is or anything.
Well, usually when they signified what time it was, they would just say Thursday.
yeah, it's meaningless.
What does that mean? It doesn't
Yeah.
tell you anything about how much time has
Wow.
gone by. There was no
Totally on purpose, of
on
course.
purpose. It was meant to be
Everything was on
timeless.
purpose with
It was
him.
the whole movie took place in this bubble of time. You have literally, because of the connection between Jack Torrance and the past. It was deliberately a timeless movie, and time had no meaning in the context of the movie itself. Just fantastic. I can't. Again, one of those movies that I watch over and over again. Every time I watch it, I learn. I pick up something new. It touches me in a different way. I loved the homage they did to it in Ready Player One. And you really get a sense that
Damn,
really
yeah.
was
They
a
did a
scary
really
movie.
good job with
yeah,
that.
really, and because you know what's coming because you've seen the movie.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, don't go in there.
Yeah,
Don't
yeah,
go
yeah,
in
yeah.
there.
That was,
Oh, yeah,
that was
it
why it was brilliant.
It was brilliant.
All right, I pick Silence of the Lambs.
Yeah, fantastic.
Psychological thriller.
Oh, psychological. All right.
Yeah, psychological thriller.
Right. Well, it fits in, it could fit in other categories. But
they all
so
can.
there were things about this movie. Now, one thing that I love is I love loving the bad guy.
Mhm.
Darth Vader, for example, right? So now we have
the anti-hero.
yeah, we have an anti-hero in this movie that is one of the best. I mean,
Hannibal Lecter. Iconic.
He's Anthony Hopkins did such a good job
He's
bringing this character to life, and
fantastic.
he's horrifying, but you want to watch him. You
You
can't-
want him to succeed.
Yes, you can't.
That's how you know. Do you want him to succeed? That's an anti-hero. Like,
Yeah.
because you don't want the other guy. You want him to get killed, like the real villain in the
Yeah,
movie.
yeah.
Like you're happy when he dies, but Anthony Hopkins, Hannibal Lecter, like he got away. Yay, the evil guy got away.
And
But
he does horrific stuff in this movie. Like
He does.
and we continue
But he's so
to be in his
compelling.
I know. Oh,
I recommend.
yeah.
I recommend all the books with him in it. I thoroughly
Yeah.
enjoyed
They
them.
were really well written.
They
Those
were. They were really good.
fantastic.
And also, don't forget, he won Best Actor. But if you
Yeah.
count the time that he was in that movie, he was a supporting actor at best.
At best.
Yeah.
But he was so good. Yeah, let's give him Best Actor. It was
But every
so
minute
good.
was like 10 minutes.
Right,
Right.
for a normal
Worth-
human.
worth-
Absolutely.
Now let's be fair. Everybody else that was in this movie did a fantastic
Absolutely.
job.
Yeah, right. Everybody.
Now,
Everybody.
There was a couple of scenes. I mean, talk about iconography.
Yeah.
The scene with the girl down the well with the dog.
Don't you hurt my dog."
and all that.
It puts the lotion in the
Yeah, like
basket.
all that's so creepy. What
this
a cool
day.
decision. Like that guy was so twisted and creepy. Now, when he turns the lights out in the house and he's got the seeing the dark
goggles on,
goggles
yeah.
and she is in pitch black, my God, that
That's
was
a scary
scary.
scene.
Yeah.
That was a really, really, really cool scene. I just adore the movie. It's great. And I did read the follow-up books, right? Did you guys read the
Yeah,
Yeah,
follow-up
they
books?
were great.
They were great.
They
They
were
were
really
great. They
good.
were great.
Yeah. Not so much the movies.
Yeah, no, the books though. were
Once
great.
Jodie Foster pulled out, it was like meh, But
Yeah.
um,
And
but the
Lecter's
books were
even
good.
Lecter's even more impressive in this
Yeah.
book with Memory Palace and all. Oh man,
Mm-hmm.
he was amazing.
Do you have a psychological?
I mean,
thriller one?
you guys kind of like
Yeah, it was
covered-
all the two best.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard to beat that. I mean, from pure psychological aspect, I can't really.
Psycho is a classic one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I watched it. I never was into Psycho. I mean, I get why it was good in the time.
Yeah.
But today
the
it doesn't-
story is good. I
it's
mean,
an
the
interesting
production
story.
value was whatever where it was, 1950s. But
I mean, I guess Saw would fit into a psychological.
Saw.
I mean, I thought Saw was pretty cool.
Dude,
You're
yeah, I
trapped
enjoyed
in
that.
the machine. You're trapped in the maze. That type of thing. It's a cool.
that's
cool
kind of its
idea.
own genre too, like the escape room horror.
Yeah.
We could even talk about that, the escape room horror. I like the Cube, but I do like the Saw
Yeah.
as well. Another one
Cube
that's
was fun.
the psychological horror. It's again, this is supernatural, but also psychological, which I watched and it totally worked for me. Was the creepy girl with the hair. I'm blanking on
The
the
Ring.
The Ring was
yeah.
The Ring. I think it was a big, it just was super creepy. I like creepy horror better than anything else because, splatter films don't really get me scared, but I'm never afraid
Yeah, they don't do much for me either.
by special effects or gore or splatter or whatever.
I-
Monsters, really, it's hard to scare me with a monster. Really, really good ones can be, but like really creepy psychological stuff, to me, that's the scariest.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I agree with you.
genre, yeah.
All right, so now let's move over to zombies. This is basically Bob's bread and butter over here.
I think it does need to be its own genre,
Yeah.
subgenre, because zombies are so iconic.
It is. I mean, you could even throw them into like an apocalyptic
Sure.
genre. You could throw them into a supernatural,
Yeah.
supernatural paranormal, because this ain't normal for especially the undead. I'm talking about the
undead version, not
zombies.
the
So what's your
viral-
favorite
But-
zombie movie,
Oh
Bob?
my
I
God!
don't-
It's like which,
you even
which,
pick
which
one?
which baby do I pick? So let's just throw out there. Let's do. I'll do two.
I know your favorite.
I'll pile it
your
down.
favorite zombie movie, World War Z.
No, get out of here.
I know
Oh,
Bob
God.
hates that movie.
That movie.
Favorite zombie book.
That was a
Oh,
great,
yes.
a great
Yeah.
book.
Amazing.
And now that's one where a rare situation in which the departure from the source material was so extreme that they really just bought the name and then wrote a completely unrelated
Right.
Yeah,
story.
they
I remember there's a couple little sentences in the movie like, oh yeah, that's from the book. That's from the book. Then that was it.
No,
It was
it
really just a title. So pissed
Anyway,
off. So pissed off.
terrible.
All right. So George Romero, gotta give him kudos.
Mm-hmm.
He and Dan O'Bannon created modern zombies in 1968's Night of the Living Dead. They did this. This is
Yeah.
before that a zombie was like a voodoo zombie dude.
Yeah.
Not what we have. So so Romero, his Day of the Dead. Now his Dawn of the Dead, it's too old for me. I loved it, but it's in terms of a favorite, enjoyable that I will watch
How
every
about
couple of
Lunchtime
years.
of the Dead? You like that
Lunchtime- no, Day of the Dead, fantastic. This is
Great movie,
the
man.
military
Yeah.
people in the underground tunnel and the scientists, and they're doing the research.
But over
and,
Dawn of the Dead?
the original.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. That's just too. The makeup's just too primitive for me, and it's kind of slow.
It hadn't fully matured yet. the
Now,
genre.
Dawn of the Dead remake.
That was good.
Wonderful, love it. But so Romero's Day of the Dead, I'll pick that, and then on the other side of that coin, I'll pick Dan O'Bannon's Return of the Living Dead because they split. So Romero got Of the Dead movies, O'Bannon got Living Dead.
Yeah.
So Return of the Living Dead is fantastic fun.
It is.
Punk rock teenagers and lots of amazing actors that you just love just watching them act. They're so much fun. And gory, and also the first zombies ever that ate brains.
Yeah.
That's a milestone. And the first undead fast zombies that I have been
Yeah.
able to detect.
So let me throw a couple of comments out. I
So,
don't know why, but I don't
wonderful
like,
movie.
I don't like zombies talking and having any intent other than doing what they do naturally. So like zombies only wanting to eat brains or whatever to me is ridiculous. I never liked it. I thought it kind of detracts from the scariness of zombies.
I hear you, Jay. If I had to pick my favorite zombie, is Romero's of the Dead
Yeah,
ones are better than O'Bannon's talking kind of fast zombies. But Return of the Living Dead is such a trip of a movie just to
Oh,
experience.
it's fun though. The movie's
it's
a lot
wonderful.
of fun. So my favorite, I fast zombies to me, I just call them infected, right? Because they have to have an active metabolism in order for them to be fast. So they're not really dead. They have to be.
But they can still be zombies, though. Like,
Yeah.
I like 28 Days.
No, 28. That's what I was gonna say.
Yeah.
28 Days Later took the fast zombie genre to its peak.
Right,
Yeah.
and they were infected. They're more infected, and
Yeah,
you could
yeah.
argue that they're not the classic undead zombies. But Dawn of the Dead remake, they're fast initially for a while because they're so fresh that
Yeah.
they're fast, but they are dead.
Yeah.
They are dead. But I like the slower ones, but I'm fine with the faster ones if it's done well.
So I'm going to give two zombie movies
Two.
my favorite: Shaun of the Dead
Shaun of the Dead's awesome.
and Zombieland. Because they're
Two
both
great zombie movies.
They're comedies by again deconstructing the zombie genre.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
the thing is,
They're wonderful.
By the time they came out, there were so many zombie movies
What could we do different?
that you could make fun of them, right? That there were themes.
it was
Yeah,
a glut.
Yeah, right. So that they were tropes. So you could make fun of all this. Like, I love the fact, like when they like in Shaun of the Dead, when they see their first zombie, they're like, oh, they're so drunk. Like they thought the person was a drunk person, because of course they don't know they're in a zombie movie, right? So they don't. And you know, if we saw a zombie in real life, we wouldn't. I mean, we're different, you know, because we're like steeped in the zombie genre. But the thing is, in reality, you wouldn't go, oh, that must be one of the living dead. You know, you're not going to say that because it's impossible.
It would take a
You would
lot
think
to
that
convince
someone's in
me.
a costume.
You would think they were in a costume, or if it wasn't that they had a head injury, or
I would get killed because I would go up and try to see
you
how
okay?
No, I'd be how'd they pulled it off. How
Yeah,
they
yeah.
like I want a costume like that, and then they'd eat me. So
But then when I
That
saw
would
it
suck.
bite you, Bob, I would run away, and then I would probably survive for a few days.
yeah, so
Yeah.
so send you first might be my takeaway. All right.
Jay, go check out that costume. I didn't really like Zombieland.
Oh really?
I didn't
Oh,
really
it was-
like it. I don't know. You know
it was
why?
so much fun.
I wanted it to be more heavy hitting. You know,
So my criticism of it is that it was a post-apocalyptic zombie
Right.
movie, but it wasn't a post-apocalyptic setting. Like,
Yeah, it really wasn't
They
that
go into a
post-apocalyptic.
convenience store, the lights are still on, it hadn't been pillaged. I mean,
yeah.
yeah. So they
Its first 5 days. You know what I mean?
yeah.
And you know how he's looking for Twinkies?
Yeah.
If you do a freeze frame in that big grocery store, there's a boxes of Twinkies on the bottom of the screen. Are you stupid? All right, but still, but they were a lot of fun. Zombieland was a
fun.
lot of fun. Shaun of the Dead, they're all great,
Yeah.
all good stuff.
What's
Um,
next?
For zombie,
No. Let's change to another genre
all right,
now.
okay.
You want to do sci-fi horror next?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think for me, sci-fi horror, it's Alien.
Yeah.
I mean, again, I give it credit for the whole franchise. You could argue about Alien versus Aliens. Aliens was one of the best sequels, but I still think Alien is a better horror movie than Aliens. Aliens is more of a shoot 'em up.
Monster.
Yeah, it's a monster hunt movie.
It's
I mean,
horrific, man. Horrific
It is.
shit
It
happens.
is. But just again, I give extra credit to movies which created iconic themes. You know, right? Which created
Definitely.
memes.
Definitely.
And Alien, I mean, you have the alien coming out of the stomach. That scene was so incredibly iconic, and no other movie in the genre, you know, gave us anything of that level, right? It basically was playing off of the iconic scenes from the first movie.
And the actors were not aware of what was going to happen.
That's what I hear.
Yeah.
I don't know how true
Yeah,
that
they were
is.
no, they were definitely surprised by makeup special effects.
Yeah.
And there was real terror going on. They were shocked and
I
scared.
love the fact that Ash was helping it the whole time. And when you
In
watch
hindsight.
when
Oh,
you
God, I
watch the
love
movie, after you know that you watch the movie again, you're like, why didn't I see that? It was so obvious.
Yes.
That
No,
he
don't
was-
touch it. Stay away. Don't touch
Yeah,
it.
Yeah.
like don't let him in. He lets him in. You know,
But also, you know, there's even scenes where when the character starts choking.
yeah,
And they cut to Ash, and Ash is like paying attention to what's going on, but he's not helping.
Yeah, right.
He's just watching. And then when you watch the movie for the second time, you're like, that son of a bitch.
yes, I know it's fantastic.
You know?
It's like there are other movies like that too, like
Sure.
Sixth Sense. You
Yeah.
know, where like when you knowing the end, you watch, you're like, yeah, why didn't I see it? So it was fantastic for that reason as well. Also, the idea of crawling through the crawl space with the
flamethrower.
flamethrower, and you see the thing blipping on the, getting closer and closer and closer.
Yeah.
I mean, they introduced so many iconic things in that movie. It absolutely has to be.
Yeah, I agree.
Near the top
Even
of
though
the
I
list.
would rather watch Aliens. To me,
Well,
it's,
Aliens is like a much larger movie. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
way more locations, and there's a lot happening. And look, Bob,
and the characters
I love
are
Aliens.
better. The
Game
characters-
over, man. I mean,
Game over.
like,
Oh my
you
God.
can't beat that. It's
Yeah.
a fantastic movie. But when you talk, there's something
Pure horror,
there's something
though.
Pure horror is
yeah,
Alien.
yeah,
exactly.
definitely.
I can't disagree with that. Can't
Yeah.
disagree.
So we're going for
Sci-fi horror.
Sci-fi horror. So I'll tell you, Prometheus is not on the list. I saw that on a list for a horror movie. I'm like, oh my God, it's actually classified as a horror movie
I
because
think
it has a monster.
I
in
know
it.
what happened. It was actually meant to be characterized as a horrible movie,
Yeah,
and it accidentally got put on the horror
Oh,
movie
that
list.
explains so
Yeah.
much.
I
All right.
can't think of any other sci-fi horror movies that really punch that hard.
Yeah, I mean, The Thing is a sci-fi horror, so
Yeah,
it
kinda,
crosses
a
over
little
to
bit
that
in there.
list as well.
Yep.
There are lots of sci-fi monster movies, like Starship Troopers, which is actually
I really enjoy that movie.
that is an underrated movie.
It's not a horror movie though.
It's not a horror; it's a monster movie, sort of.
Kind
Sort
of.
of.
It's
It crosses lines.
It crosses lines,
Yeah, it crosses
but it's
lines.
actually a sleeper good movie. Like you want to dismiss it as a cheesy
Yeah.
campy movie, but when you look at it, like, oh, this was actually an interesting movie. You got anything for
sci-fi horror. I'm sorry. I apologize. I'm going with Aliens. It's just like
That's fine.
to me, it's
All right, but
it's a wonderful science fiction movie, and it's got major horror elements into it. Maybe more monster elements.
What about the Predator?
I just had a conversation with someone at
I
your
know.
Halloween party, Bob, that may have
Predator.
ruined Predator for me. I think I don't like the movie anymore.
What
I-
was it? Brian?
No, it wasn't Brian.
No, but anyway,
It was Jordu. He told me all about why he doesn't like the movie Predator, and he made so many good points.
all his criticisms are valid. It's as a movie, it's cheesy as hell. It is just
It is super cheesy.
It is super machismo. But the thing is, when we were watching it and we were younger and
We
we
were
were watching
enthralled.
it, all we cared about was how awesome the Predator was, and everything else was just an excuse to have the Predator on
Yeah,
the screen
and the Predator
and
was
killing
awesome.
people.
Yeah.
And the Predator was
Yeah.
awesome. It was probably the most alien creature we saw in any science fiction up to that point.
Yep.
And that was the new bit. It was like, here's a actually alien, you
Yeah.
know? And the idea that the Predator was a predator, like that's what it was, that it was genre creating, in
For
a way.
sure.
Still,
Yeah.
I still love the movie. I still
Yeah.
and that
All right.
criticism doesn't bring me down.
That's fine.
From
You do you, Bob. That's
Predator is still great. Probably one of the best. There's a lot of Predator movies out there, and Liz and I
Yeah.
were going through all of them. And Predator 1 was still one of the best. But did you guys see The Prey? The new
Not
Predator?
yet. It's on my list of
Whoa!
two. I heard
whoa,
it was
whoa,
fantastic.
Fantastic!
I heard it was great.
Neither of you got you.
Never
No.
seen it yet.
See it. No, see it like, let's end right now and you go see it upstairs.
After you watch Mythic Quest.
Yeah, all right.
All right.
well,
Any other genres, guys?
Well, we have to do slasher, gore, horror movies, just because it's a major part of the genre.
Wait, where could I squeeze in Evil Dead 2 here, man? Because
Well, because those are definitely those are what do we call those? Supernatural.
All right.
That was our
Yeah.
that
All
was
right,
our category.
because there's possession, there's demons for sure. If I have to throw it in that category, so be it.
Well, if
That-
we go to like supernatural, like religious supernatural, like spiritual supernatural, like demons and ghosts and possession, that
Yeah.
kind of stuff, then
Yeah.
you can include that movie. I would include. We have to include The Exorcist and also
The Omen. That was
or-
a scary movie
Yeah,
back
those
in
are
the
those
day.
are
I
two
wonder how
classic.
well they haven't seen either in a
The
while.
Exorcist strangely holds up.
It holds up.
That
It
freaked
really
you
holds
out,
up.
Jay, right?
It
Growing
still
up?
does. I mean, I know everything about it. I've seen
Yeah.
special effects videos and everything, but when I watch the film, it creeps me out to no end.
It is
Yeah.
a genuinely creepy, scary movie.
But dude, Evil Dead.
Evil Dead. I mean, this for the whole trilogy and the TV shows. I'm going to throw that in there, which were pure over the top gore that I have never seen. The Evil Dead series on TV is where to go, is where to see
Without
that.
a doubt. I mean,
Stuff I've never seen or imagined I would ever see.
the first Evil Dead movie is scary. It's a very, very good scary.
To this
scary
Jay, we're
possession
talking
movie.
in 1981. 1981, I remember the scene where they show the guy hacking up his buddies with an axe, and I think it's even just a shadow. You're not even. I never was in a theater before where everybody except me was screaming. People were screaming.
God, if I could have a
screaming a
video
little
camera
bit.
No.
of that moment,
It was-
I'd pay thousands of dollars.
That was fantastic. But for me, Evil Dead 2 was the best of the trilogy. The Army of Darkness was wonderful. Probably the best time I ever had in a movie theater in my life.
too, I was with
because,
you. That was
Because we
great.
were there, but with
Yeah.
Steve Blackwell and
Larry,
just us.
yeah.
Nobody else. So we were just
Throwing
letting
out
it
comments.
talking out loud,
It was
joking.
awesome, yeah.
It was fantastic. Let's get the hell out of here. Fantastic. So I love the whole Evil Dead,
Yeah.
and that's
Oh, the
always
series
going
is
to be
fantastic.
near and dear to my heart.
But
Throw
the
it in any
first
category
movie-
you want.
The first movie is not a comedy. It's not like a horror comedy. It's just meant to be very, very scary. It's
Right.
hokey, but it's very scary.
Okay.
It is, but it's so low budget. It's so low budget.
on, Bob.
Still scary and great. I haven't seen it in
it
years, but Evil Dead 2 though is kind of it's a sequel. I used to think it's more of a remake, but it's really a sequel. And there was a problem. They couldn't get the rights to the first movie. How did that happen? So they had to, when they did the recap, the previouslys, they had to refilm it. So it was like, wait, is this a reboot or it's a sequel? It's really technically it's a sequel. I love it. It's over the top. It's creepy, scary, funny, and of course Bruce Campbell. Hello, do I need to introduce this guy?
Yeah, he's awesome.
Fantastic.
All right, let's just do.
All right,
I have a couple questions for you guys, real quick.
All right,
because it's a subgenre of monster movies, but I feel like we kind of have to quickly throw it out there. Werewolves and vampires.
So I was going to say, let's just do a miscellaneous category to pick movies that are just that span multiple genres or just that.
Okay.
So for werewolf movies, because we were into werewolf movies a lot for a while. I mean, again, I think the best werewolf movie is An American Werewolf in London. And again,
I adored that movie.
Yeah, it's
a great movie.
It's a great movie. Again, it's the whole package. Is it the best transition scene in the movies? No, but it's a great one. And
in full light, there is no shadows. I mean, you see it, and that they promised that. I remember hearing.
And it
them
was really
that.
At the time, it was the best.
Rick Baker did a fantastic job with that transformation.
He's a god,
scene.
Yeah.
The movie was well acted. It was a very interesting plot. It hit on all cylinders.
But what about the other big werewolf movie in my book, The Howling? That was the first.
That's not a great movie. There's some good werewolf stuff in the movie, but the movie itself is not a good movie.
It could have been, but it's the perfect movie to do a reboot to redo.
That was a movie. But that was the movie where when I saw that transformation scene for the first time, and you know who did it? Rob Bottin. Yeah. Hello. Yeah. When I first saw that, my jaw dropped. I was mesmerized. We were so excited about it that we brought our parents the next day. Mom, Dad, this movie, you're gonna love it. My mom sat down, and when the first shit started happening, we all walked out. She made us leave.
Yeah, she couldn't deal with it.
But
all right, so just to clarify,
last time we brought her to a movie.
To clarify, The Howling has probably the best werewolf transformation scene, in my opinion. I mean, there's a lot of movies that do it, but this one is super scary because it takes its time. But the movie itself, it could be done a lot better.
Yeah. Probably one of my favorite types of werewolves.
How about vampire?
I mean, I love vampire movies. I love the
Interview with the Vampire.
Interview with the Vampire was good. I mean, I love the books, and the movie was true to the book, and it was perfectly cromulent. It's not like one I would go back and watch again. You know what I mean? Not one of those
felt
movies.
No desire, and I got to admit that Tom Cruise did better as Lestat than I thought he should have been able to do.
He did a great job.
He was fine.
I would have rather had Daniel Day-Lewis be Lestat, but he actually did a good job.
He did a great job.
Got to give him some props for that.
I mean, the vampire movie with Gary Oldman as Dracula, like one of that Dracula movie, I really liked that Dracula.
That was good.
That was, I remember, I haven't seen it in years. I remember being disappointed overall. How about Frank Langella's Dracula from 1979?
At the time, he was a great Dracula, but it just, it's hokey by modern standards.
Liz
and I think that Gary Oldman was.
Liz and I saw it like only like last year, and man, it held up.
Is that right?
I mean, very atmospheric. It's cinematography and acting is wonderful. I would have amped up in terms of the special effects and the action. So it's a little bit slower going because it's from '79.
But it does a great job of
still holds up.
It does hold up, and it does a great job of the original idea of vampires, right? It's like it has a
the
really
creep factor was really high.
Definitely,
and the sexy vampire, of course.
And when the daughter goes, Papa, so at that
Papa.
point she was a half vampire.
Oh man,
right?
that was creepy as shit. And if we're talking vampires, I don't care if this isn't a movie. I'm gonna throw out Castlevania on Netflix because
it was great.
Blew my mind in terms of vampires and some of the most beautiful demonic demons I have ever seen.
Yeah.
Beautifully creative. That is a wonderful. It's like 2 or 3 seasons. Watch it. It's fantastic.
I agree.
Acting, the writing. There's no goofy dialogue, and the actors, the voice actors, they sell every word that they say.
So we know we missed a lot.
Yeah,
I know it's just way too big. It's way too big.
This is a collection of hundreds of movies at this point. When you look at the top list, these are easily 100 movie lists that you could find.
Yeah. So somebody in
the
chat,
they've
been
vampires.
asking for comedy horror. It's just Young Frankenstein, and we could move on.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really look at it as a horror movie.
It's a Frankenstein.
Yeah,
It's a
it is,
monster
though.
movie,
It
so
is.
it's in the monster genre.
Yeah. So if we missed a movie, email us. You could email us. Ian, what's the Alpha Quadrant email, by the way?
Do you want the Gmail one or do you like the real one?
Yeah, if you
Because
have-
info at alphaquadrant6.com
It's
is a
info?
good one. I think so. I think so. I don't remember, honestly.
Okay.
Or alphaquadrant6 at gmail.com.
You can email us at
basically goes
alphaquadrant6 at gmail.com. We also have probably 20 other emails, but email us at that if you want to like tell us what you thought. I really like to. I'm curious to see what other people's top lists are. I mean, and keeping in mind what we talked about is very much shows our age as well, right?
Yeah,
So, yep.
absolutely.
If you talk to younger people, there'd be a whole different list of movies that would come up. I bet.
It's very subjective, right? I mean, obviously.
Yeah. If I had to include something very recent on the list, I would say Midsummer. Midsummer is my favorite recent horror movie. Have you guys seen it?
No, I
No.
heard about it.
It's
though.
really good. It's basically people who run afoul of this really bizarre cult, but it's a good psychological psycho kind of horror movie. Very good.
And somebody brought up in the chat the Japanese horror movies. Absolutely. I mean, there's a whole, The Ring and The Grudge. There's a whole collection of them.
Yeah.
And we were talking. I know it's not a movie, but we were talking about Squid Game. You said that's awesome.
Squid Game is awesome. It really is very good. Watch it with subtitles. Don't watch it with the voiceover.
It's okay.
Midnight
it's
Mass.
okay.
Midnight Mass.
Wow, that was
Well,
wonderful.
yeah, we're not covering TV.
I know,
but
but,
do-
it's-
maybe
but I
we
can
should
edit
do a
this out.
TV one.
I can
Maybe we
edit
should-
this out. We could do it. I could do a whole episode on Midnight Mass.
Yeah.
That was one
Fantastic.
Loved it.
of the best horror TV shows probably I've ever seen.
the concept was brilliant.
Brilliant. Now, if you haven't watched it and you do go to watch it, you have to let it cook for a couple of episodes. There's a long bleed in the
Yep.
beginning, and then I promise
It
you, it
builds
gets
nicely.
it
Even
gets
I,
fantastic.
after 2 episodes, like, why am I watching this? I don't. I mean, this isn't.
worth the
not pulling.
investment.
They do some table setting the first couple episodes, and then you will be very happy that you watched it. Stick with it. Midnight Mass.
Yeah, because you know something's coming.
And Cloverfield is such a good monster. There's
there's
too many.
just so many,
There's too
yeah.
many.
John Goodman did a great job.
Well, I'm talking about the first
first one.
found film Cloverfield, the first one.
Not the Cloverfield Lane.
Yeah.
was also good. Different. That's more of a psychological.
Cthulhu, anything
one.
with Cthulhu, it's got me. I just love
Yeah.
Cthulhu so much that world is so compelling and dark and dangerous. It's such a desperate story. I love it. All right, let's wrap it up.
All right.
All right, guys, if you enjoyed this episode, please go to alphaquadrant6.com. You could find our podcast there. You could find links to our Facebook page and to our YouTube page. Please like us on YouTube as well. Click the bell if you want to get alerts on when we drop new episodes. And we will see you next week.
Thanks, guys. All right.
It's fun. You know
All
what?
right, we're out.
This genre is so good because you look at the comments and everybody's dropping
Yeah.
the movies in there that they like. There's a million. There's
There's so many
movies.
good ones. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm glad we did this. I'm glad that went well because we could have.
That was a hard.
It could have been.
I was worried about talking
very
about
spotty.
it because
Because there was so much,
there's
but
so
I
much.
think we hit the good highlights. And,
Yeah.
And again, it's important just to make the points about like what makes a good horror movie a good horror movie.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I like the deconstruction part is actually
Yeah.
my favorite thing to talk about.
Thanks, Ian.
All right, everyone. Thank you, guys.
Yeah.
We'll see you in a few weeks. We'll see you after Thanksgiving. Have a great Thanksgiving, and thank you, Ian. We'll talk soon, everybody.
Good night, everyone.
Bye-bye.